There you go.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming today. We appreciate you coming out to cover what is an incredibly important issue, and it's about public safety in our city. Obviously, last week's attack on our NYPD officers by illegal immigrants was very troubling for the entire community. I mean, here's a situation where the taxpayers are being forced to pay to house, feed, provide education, healthcare, legal services, laundry services for individuals because of the mayor's interpretation of right to shelter. And then to add insult to injury, we see many of these individuals committing crime in our city. Now, last week's attack was only one of about 1,000 different incidents that we've seen in the city, but it got a lot of scrutiny and media attention because it was an attack on police officers. And this is completely unacceptable, but sadly it's not the first one that we've seen. There were a couple of other police officers who have been attacked by migrants in our city, including a woman who slapped a police officer in the face, and then following a DUI bust, an individual who bit the finger of a sergeant. 1,000 arrests of migrants in our city for crimes ranging from assault to grand larceny to robbery to stabbings and even a murder at the Roosevelt shelter. And what's troubling the most, perhaps, is that NYPD's hands are tied and they are prohibited by City Council's laws from 2014 from cooperating with Immigration and Customs Enforcement to have these individuals detained and deported. So, the other day you read another incident about a woman who's been arrested 8 times for pickpocketing in our city, and that individual has been repeatedly released back onto the street because of the ridiculous bail laws of our state. And then she goes back to the luxury hotel room that the taxpayers of the city are paying for to add insult to injury. This past fiscal year, ICE issued 109 detainer requests for individuals who are dangerous, that committed crimes in our city, and zero have been honored by the city of New York. The previous fiscal year, 22, 157 detainer requests. Again, 0 were honored by the city of New York. And the number of detainer requests have gone down significantly under the Biden administration. At the end of the Trump administration, the end of fiscal year 21, there were 1,485 detainer requests, and again, 0 were honored by the city of New York. Now, I want to bring up our director for the New York City field office for ICE, Kenneth Janello, to talk about some of the detainers that they have put out for criminals in New York City who are here illegally and should not be here. So you can get a sense of the type of people who are walking among us after committing crimes in our city. Kenneth, where are you? Oh.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone's doing well. It's a nice, cool Monday morning. Ken Janello, Field Office Director for the ICE Enforcement Removal Operations in New York City, covering the 5 boroughs of New York, all of Long Island, and the 7 lower counties of the Hudson Valley region. Obviously, we're here to protect the community, and we have a lot of overarching priorities, the same as all of our law enforcement partners, including NYPD and the city's, the mayor's office. We're here, we want to assist, we want to help. The problem is due to city policies and state law, the cooperation is no longer afforded between NYPD, the law enforcement partners, and ICE. So unfortunately, a lot of the way that we have to do our intelligence in ICE is the same way that you find out about cases. It's through the media. So we're no longer contacted, we're no longer called, and we have to check our databases. But obviously there's hundreds of people a week that are being arrested throughout the city. And if we can't determine which one is being, the most violent, we have to find out, unfortunately, through the media, through the newspapers, through the actual television outlets. That alerts us to start digging even deeper. The problem is, back when they passed the sanctuary laws, we used to have a unit that sat in Rikers Island, worked hand in hand with NYPD. The prior administration at the time kicked the unit out of Rikers Island. We no longer have a presence there. So basically, anyone at that time that was foreign born was vetted by my staff, the immigration officers, to determine whether or not they were amenable to removal proceedings. If they were, we took custody of them and we placed them in removal proceedings. Remember, everyone that comes into ICE custody is afforded the ability to legal counsel and the right to see a judge. All right, so without having our detainees honored and the subjects returned directly back into the community, there's a lot of recidivism. And obviously, once they're back in the community, we have to then go look for them. So number one, the public safety factor for the community increases, but on top of it, also for my staff and my officers. Instead of being able to take custody of these individuals in the confines of a jail or in the confines of a precinct, we now have to go out into the community and the streets, where unfortunately the criminals have the upper hand, whether it be at a residence, whether it be at a place of employment, or just anywhere out in the streets as itself. The other issue, besides the detainers, is the whole problem with judicial warrants. So every time we lodge a detainer, we also lodge an administrative warrant. And the city came back, and a lot of other cities across the country, many years ago with the prior administration, started using the semantics of you have to have a judicial warrant for us to turn them over to you. What happens is they're basically putting state law over federal law, because the federal law, the INA, and the Code of Federal Regulations states the administrative warrants are signed by managers or above within ICE, as opposed to a judicial warrant that is signed by a U.S. magistrate. We sign hundreds of them on a day. So the federal law states that we have the authority to sign these warrants, which we include with our detainers. The cities across the United States say, no, we want a judicial warrant. Well, you don't get a judicial warrant for these cases. So when they always say, well, all you have to do is get a judicial warrant, that's not what the INA, the Immigration Nationalization Act, says. And it's not what the HCFR says for the Code of Federal Regulations. We have the authority to issue the warrants. So, I'm willing to work with the mayor's office and with the governor's office to try and get back to the table to speak about having this situation addressed once again. At least I give credit to the current administration here in New York City. I've had several meetings. My staff has had several meetings. At least we're dialoguing again. The prior administration, we were kicked out and we never had a seat at the table. So baby steps to get back in, but we want to make sure these people, you see the crimes that they're committing, they're turned over back to ICE. If they don't contact us, if you don't honor the detainers, there's no way that we can get them immediately. At that point, we have to go searching for them. And obviously, once they're released, they could be in the wind, they could be moving to another state, or they could be going anywhere. So I'm hoping it's possible to get both the city of New York and the governor in the state of New York made me back to the table with ICE in New York City and my counterpart up in Buffalo. We handle the whole state of New York, so that's what we're looking to do right now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that is why we're here today, to call on the city to once again resume cooperation with Immigration and Customs Enforcement to deport individuals who are committing these dangerous crimes in our city. As was mentioned, there's a number of laws, Intro 486A and 487A, that were passed by the City Council under Bill de Blasio. One kicked ICE out of Rikers Island, the other one prohibited NYPD from cooperating. There are also a number of state laws that have tied their hands. The Green Light Law prohibits cooperation between local authorities and the federal ICE and Customs and Border Protection, and it also cuts off access to the DMV database, which obviously hinders their ability to investigate and find these individuals. And there's also one more law that they mentioned to me on the state level that prohibits ICE from detaining an individual on the day of their court date. So if they're going to court for a criminal matter and ICE knows they're going to be there that day, they cannot make an arrest on that day. That further ties their hands. But we're here today specifically to talk about the two city laws, and I'm really happy to have some partners on the city level that are willing to make these changes and that are calling on their colleagues to make these changes. I'm joined today by members of the Common Sense Caucus of the City Council, and I'd like to first bring up our minority leader of the City Council, Joe Borelli.
Thank you. You all look cold, sorry. In 1989, New York City enacted an executive order making it the first of many different changes in law that gave more rights and privileges and liberties to people who have come here in violation of our immigration law. That was met with subsequent laws in 2011, 2014, 2017, and 2022. That's matched at the state level. Multiple laws, multiple years. All this collectively is what we commonly call our sanctuary city policy. And the thing that unites all of those things are that they're brought to us and sponsored by the Democratic Party of New York State and those politicians. Now we have a gentleman in the White House, President Biden, who's shocked that people are coming across the border illegally. This is someone on day one of his presidency pushed through another executive order matching the logic that we see in the city and state, undermining 36 or so Customs and Border Protection policies, and now he's shocked. And now we hear prominent Democrats in New York State, some of the most prominent ones, that are just completely confused, completely befuddled at how people who are here without the proper immigration status can assault police officers and get on a bus and go to California. They're confused as to why they're not being deported. They're actually calling for their deportation. And they're ignoring the fact that they have been the enablers on this sanctuary city policy that have got us here this very day. This is the logic that defines New York State. And unfortunately for the voters, they've made their bed. They've elected these people and enacted these policies. The voters need to think long and hard before they choose the next leaders at the city and state level, because this is unsustainable, and even they now admit we need a change of these policies. And of course it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, this is a bipartisan press conference, and we're very fortunate to have one Democrat here who's part of the Common Sense Caucus, and I'm very proud that he's joining us, and that is Bob Holden of Queens.
Yes, and I am a Democrat, but I don't want to. No, I'm not apologizing for it. I am a Democrat, but I don't agree with the sanctuary city policies. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. When you have police officers attacked, you have citizens attacked on a regular basis. Do we need more criminals? We have to import them and then protect them. Right. That's ridiculous. It needs to stop. So the Common Sense Caucus, which I co-chair and co-founded with Joe Borelli, there's 3 Democrats, and we're all committed to overturning some of these laws that are protecting criminals. this should not be. How in the world do we have to protect them and then pay for their legal fees and then let them go without bail so they can flee? This is insane. It's not good policy, obviously. A sanctuary city should not mean protecting criminals. So let's stop right away and let's change this. And we're committed. The rest of the city council has to fall in line. I don't know if they will. But like Joe Borelli said, if they don't fall in line, they should be voted out. No elected official should be protecting criminals. And what happened to the officers across the street, it was criminal on so many levels. Kicking somebody in the head, you can kill them. There should be attempted murder charges. The DA's got to wake up. He finally woke up, and there'll be a hearing tomorrow, but again, many of them are gone. And that's not what we're about in the city council. Public safety, protecting citizens. That's what the city council should be about, and that's what the Common Sense Caucus is about. Thank you.
All right, we're going back to Staten Island, and I introduce my colleague, David Carr.
Thank you, Congresswoman, for your leadership, and of course my council colleagues and ICE for the phenomenal work they do every day enforcing our laws. We're in the vicinity of where the heinous attacks against our police officers took place. And I want to be clear, criminal violence anywhere perpetrated against anyone is a travesty. But you're made to realize just how bad it is when those who serve and protect in uniform and do all they can to make the people of this city safe are being assaulted. And it's made to seem even worse when you realize it could have been prevented. We didn't need to have an open border where people can come and go without being vetted, without being properly admitted, or being admitted without being vetted. We didn't need to have a right to shelter inappropriately applied universally, creating a tremendous incentive for people to come here. We didn't need to have sanctuary city laws, which gives aid and comfort to people whose first act upon entering this country was to violate our nation's borders and to break our laws. People who commit crimes need to face consequences, and that includes people who have come from other countries. These sanctuary city policies are ridiculous. They're impeding our law enforcement and our officials. They're making those same law enforcement officials less safe, and by consequence, they're making all of us less safe. These individuals need to be brought to trial. They need to be deported. They do not belong in this country. They should not have the privilege of being in the greatest country in the world, in what was the safest big city in that country. And our public safety will always be in jeopardy when the hands of law enforcement is tied and they're not allowed to do the job that we know that they can do and that they want to do. So I join with my colleagues in the council, I join with the Congresswoman in calling on my colleagues at the city and state levels to open their eyes to what is happening. That our quality of life is being diminished and attacked, and it's because of laws they support. And those laws need to be rescinded and repealed. Thank you.
Now back to Queens, we've got Councilwoman Vicky Palladino.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Thank you very much, everybody. As my colleagues have already said, it happened right over there in front of the New Victory Theater. We are now importing by tens of thousands of unvetted. We have no knowledge of who these people are, what their backgrounds are, and now they are free to assault our cops. We're calling upon our city council. We all know which way that goes. Our city council, what they did last week to our cops with Joe 586, we watched them once again tie up our cops. ICE has got to do their job. These people need to be deported. These people need to be arrested. Kathy Hochul has the power at the state level to do what needs to be done and untie ICE. We watched the de Blasio administration single-handedly bring down this city. Mayor Adams' door is open. His ears are open. He's willing to take meetings. Good for him. But go to the state head, okay? Because you can't kill the snake unless you cut the head off. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, to wrap up, We're just asking for some common sense here. We're asking that citizens be put first, that public safety be put first, that law and order be put first, that we support our NYPD. We do what we can to protect them. And I think that if you talk to New Yorkers overwhelmingly, you will see that Democrats, Independents, and Republicans agree with us that we need to have the back of our police officers, we need to keep our city safe, and we need to deport individuals who are here and are committing crimes against our citizenry. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.